All right. Quickly just microscope वाला part देख लेते हैं. Okay, we try to be a little quick today. So resolving power of a microscope, it is a reciprocal. By the way, this is all your main syllabus portion. ठीक है? So technically, again, your advanced syllabus is just उसमें सिर्फ wave optics बचा है, sorry, उसमें सिर्फ Huygens principle बचा है. So in fact, some of these things that I'll be teaching here may not even come in your MT. I can be very, I can almost guarantee you कि I don't think, um, yeah, just let me know the question numbers that are remaining. हाँ, तो I can guarantee कि ये तुम्हारे advanced के जो MT होगा उसमें mains वाला portion तो आएगा नहीं, है ना? It'll be a model of the JEE advanced exam. So you won't have this, but it'll be good to finish this nonetheless, है ना? Since the mains also is an important exam, and statistically most people get their colleges through the mains exam. 33 and 28 homework था. Okay, 28 एक बार जल्दी से discuss कर लेता हूँ. Okay, we need to be a little quick today, so just be quick in writing. The width of a slit in the single slit experiment is 2 millimeters. The width of a slit in the single slit experiment is 2 millimeters. The screen is 6 meters away from the slit. ये सवाल था. Light used is of wavelength 500 nanometers. Find the width of the central maxima, the angular divergence in which the central maxima is contained, and the location of the second minima above the central maxima. ये अपना सवाल था. Okay. तो यार ये बहुत पहला क्वेश्चन तो सीधा फॉर्मूला बेस्ड है. Width of central maxima is 2d lambda by b. Right? That's what we get in our single slit diffraction, 2d lambda by b. From the first minima below the center to the first minima above the center. From minus d lambda by b to d lambda by b, you have your central bright fringe of width 2d lambda by b. Plug in the values. 2 into d is 6. Everything is in SI units. Lambda is 5 into 10 to the power minus 7, and b is 2 millimeters. 2 into 10 to the power minus 3. वो solve करने पे 30 into 10 power minus 4 यानी कि 3 millimeters आ जाता है. Third question की एक बार पहले कर लेता हूँ. Third question is actually location of the second minima above the central maxima. ठीक है? तो इसके ऊपर, सेंटर के ऊपर सेकंड मिनिमा, तो ये फर्स्ट मिनिमा हो जाता है d lambda by b, और 2d lambda by b वाला सेकंड मिनिमा हो जाता है. So the second minima lies at above the center. Second minima lies at y equal to 2d lambda by b. Y equal to 2d lambda by b. So coincidentally, it's basically the same term as the first question. Okay, means something different of course, but it's the same value 2d lambda by b. ये भी 3 millimeter आ जाएगा. First maxima at plus d lambda by b, second maxima at plus 2d lambda by b. इसमें फिर second question बस एक थोड़ा नया terminology है second question में, है ना? What does this mean? Angular divergence in which central maxima is contained. Abhi, I have been kind enough to, in a way, explain what that means in brackets. But sometimes the exam may not explain this. This is like kind of familiar phrases. I mean, phrases that we should be familiar with in our vocabulary. Like divergence means spread. Angular divergence would be a fancy way of saying what is the angular spread over which the central maxima is contained. So technically, central maxima कितने एंगल के अंदर लाई करता है? Central maxima कितने एंगल के अंदर लाई करता है? तो it is lying, first of all, what is, so in what angle is it contained? ठीक है? So in what angle is it contained? What is that angle it is contained in? ठीक है? Central maxima lies in this region. तो ये दो angles, मतलब ये angle के अंदर वो contained है. That basically means वो center पे क्या angle subtend करता है. So if you ever see a diffraction question in your mains exam where it says find angular divergence, that just means the angle that the maxima subtends on the slit. ठीक है, this angle subtended by the central maximum on the slit, and angle कितना होगा, arc length by radius, arc length by radius. This angle is very small, so our arc length is going to be more or less a straight line this time. So arc length is 2d lambda by b, and radius is the distance of the screen. The radius is capital D, right? So 2d lambda by b by capital B, मतलब 2 lambda by b. ठीक है, एंगल चाहिए तो d कैपिटल D हटा दो, कैपिटल D हटाओगे तो एंगल आ जाएगा. 2 lambda by b is the angle. 2 lambda by b is the angle. So that's the formula. That's how it will look in variable form. यहाँ पे कैलकुलेट करने के लिए, सिंस ये ऑलरेडी पता था 3 मिलीमीटर, तो मैंने वो यूज किया और नीचे कैपिटल D 6 मीटर डिवाइड किया, जिससे आंसर आ रहा है 0.5 into 10 to the power -3 or 5 into 10 to the power -4 radians. Any doubt on this in this question? Any doubt in this question? Okay. Fraunhofer circular aperture diffraction is the same thing. Only thing is, instead of seeing bands like this, instead of seeing bands, you see concentric circles. And यहाँ पे band का diameter 2d lambda by b है ना, band का width 2d lambda by b था ना, वहाँ पे circle का diameter 2d lambda by b into 1.22 होता है. तो circle का diameter 2d lambda by b into 1.22 होता है, मतलब radius बस 1.22 lambda by b होता है. यहाँ पे minimas occur at d lambda by b ना, d lambda by b, 2d lambda by b, multiples of d lambda by b. वहाँ पे minimas occur at radii of 1.22 d lambda by b. तो बस वो 1.22 का एक extra factor comes in because its shape is different. ठीक है, so there's a little different bands behind it. तो 1.22 का बस extra factor आता है, but apart from that everything is the same. यहाँ पे center से d lambda by d b distance ऊपर you'll get a dark fringe. वहाँ पे center से d lambda by b into 1.22 distance दूर you'll get a dark circle. तो dark fringe की जगह dark circle है और d lambda by b की जगह 1.22. That's the only difference. Okay. I'll just read Sahil's question. He's saying, what can be done if it asks for angular divergence in which the second minima is contained? Idea same hai. Angular divergence in which the second minima is contained is this angle. वापस you'll do arc length by radius, but only difference is वहाँ पे arc length 2d lambda by b के जगह सिर्फ d lambda by b होगा. And that's if you're talking about the second fringe. So angle in which the second fringe is contained, the second bright fringe, central के ऊपर जो bright fringe है ना, that is contained in, उसका thickness आधा होता है तो angle भी आधा होगा. Instead of 2d lambda by b, there will be d lambda by b by d. But उसका कोई पूछेगा नहीं. They'll always ask you the central one. Okay. And I corrected your question. Your question was actually angle in which minima is contained makes no sense because we technically just define the minima exactly at one point. Sometimes while bright fringe we refer to it as the entire thing, but dark fringe we just, we ऐसा उसका hard and fast कुछ definition नहीं है. You'll have to define. फिलहाल minima for me is that dark line over there. That's just one point. वो तो negligible angle subtend करता है. तो ऐसा सवाल नहीं है. But angular divergence in which the central maxima is contained, that's a common question. Just divide central maxima ka thickness by capital D. Okay, no doubt, nobody is saying anything. So I'm going to assume you guys are getting it. If you have doubts, please ask. 33. So this was based on I think the telescope. है ना, telescope का क्या result आया था? ये क्या है? Resolving power is reciprocal of angle subtended and is b by 1.22 lambda. So like you can imagine कि a majority of the questions from a mains level could be how direct they could be, right? यहाँ पे कुछ 3-4 वेरिएबल है, एक अननोन रहेगा, बाकी 2 दे देंगे, है ना, तीसरा पूछेंगे वैसा, मतलब वो अननोन क्या है वो पूछेंगे, बी दिया, डेल्टा थीटा दिया, लैम्डा पूछ सकते हैं. So you can have very simple questions like that. If I try to make it a little tricky, it will be something like this. So if I'm trying to make it tricky, this is what I'm doing. Two stars are approximately 100 million light years away from the Earth. Okay? And this is making up values. I don't know if this is how whether I'm exaggerating. But anyways, two stars are 100 million light years away from the Earth. Light coming from them has a wavelength of 500 nanometer predominantly, my favorite value. If the distance between the stars is 1.22 light years, find the minimum radius of the aperture of the objective. पूछा क्या है? B का वैल्यू पूछा है. मिनिमम वो भी थोड़ा ध्यान दो इसमें. Radius पूछा है. Watch out for that because B is actually the diameter of the aperture. ठीक है? B is the, in single slit will be the slit width, but for a circular slit will be the circle का diameter, aperture का diameter. Okay, तो यहाँ पे radius पूछा है. Watch out for that. So this is where we can make you lose some marks. It's too easy to begin with, but where we can put some traps is radius पूछ सकता है, जबकि formula में B diameter होता है. Find the minimum radius that the aperture should have so that the telescope can see the stars clearly. See, for the telescopes to just be able to see the stars, the angle that the stars are subtending should be equal to the minimum angle that the telescope can see. The minimum angle that the telescope can see is this 1.22 lambda by b. अब बस मैंने इस क्वेश्चन में तुम्हें वो एंगल ऐसा लड्डू की तरह दिया नहीं है. I'm making you work a little hard for it. And what little hard? This is the most basic stuff. Angle is arc length by radius. So wherever those two stars are, what angle do they subtend on the telescope? Arc length will be like the distance between them, 1.22 light years, and radius will be like their distance to the telescope, that is 100 million light years. ठीक है? तो एंगल में लाइट ईयर्स कट करके एंगल हो जाएगा 1.22 into this is 10 to the power -8 radians. तो इतना एंगल the stars are subtending on the telescope. इतना एंगल the stars are subtending on the telescope. ठीक है? Now this should be equal to the minimum angle required for good resolution. Okay, so the minimum angle required is 1.22 lambda by b. Lambda is 5 into 10 power -7 meters. बस यहाँ से b का वैल्यू निकालना है. मतलब so you can see how simple it is. b का वैल्यू निकाल दिया. b का वैल्यू ये काट दो, इधर एक्स्ट्रा -10 power -1 रहेगा, तो b का वैल्यू 50 हो जाएगा, 50 meters. So one, I made you work a little hard for the made you work a little hard for finding delta theta, and the other trap in this question was I asked radius, whereas b is always diameter. B is not radius. B is the aperture diameter. B is the aperture diameter. Yeah, Fraunhofer of a single slit diffraction. Where have we stressed it? Yeah, see, B is यहाँ पे देखो green में लिखा है B is the aperture diameter. Alright, so B is always aperture diameter. So B is 50 meters. मतलब aperture का radius उधर एक छोटा सा trap हो सकता है. Aperture का radius is 25 meters. Okay, so that's it. That's the max complexity that can come in a telescope question. Got the idea? Let me know if anyone wants me to wait on this page. Okay. Cool. So, resolving power of a microscope. जल्दी से देखेंगे. Again, you're just going to have like formula based stuff. And I'll tell you like what, there is one slight problem in the way some books describe this derivation. So actually क्या है, resolving power of a microscope, it is the reciprocal of the minimum distance delta d between two close points on an object that are just resolved through a microscope. तो microscope में फर्क है, इस बार it's not the reciprocal of the angle, it's the reciprocal of the distance between the points. तब it was angle subtended for the telescope, microscope में it is distance. Both are called resolving power, but as you can understand, they have different units, different dimensions. Telescope is in radians inverse. Microscope के लिए it is in meter inverse. Right? They have different dimensions. ये distance का reciprocal ऐसा define किया गया है. Okay. Let B be the diameter of the upper objective of the microscope. I'm drilling it again. B is diameter of the objective. Okay. Now the object is usually placed beyond the focus of a microscope for maximum magnification. Okay, so some of you may have, maybe we have forgotten optical instruments. Okay, you may want to revise that from time to time, or at least revise it as you're coming close to your mains exam. But the idea is कि, just to remind you, यहाँ पे objective से focal length के just बाहर, ऑब्जेक्टिव से फोकल लेंथ के जस्ट बाहर हम ऑब्जेक्ट प्लेस करते हैं, ठीक है. सो व्हेन वी आर वेरी क्लोज टू द फोकस ना, व्हाट हैपेंस इज द इमेज इज फॉर्म फार अवे. सो ऑब्जेक्टिव के कारण इमेज काफी दूर बन जाता है, और जितना दूर बनेगा उतना मैग्नीफाई होते जाएगा. बट ये किस तरीके का इमेज बनेगा, ये एक रियल इमेज बनेगा, बिकॉज इट्स आउटसाइड द फोकस. तो ऑब्जेक्ट वाज आउटसाइड द फोकस, तो उसके लिए एक रियल इमेज बनेगा, मैग्नीफाइड बनेगा. एंड देन फिर सेकंड पार्ट में उसको वर्चुअल बनाने के लिए, बिकॉज आवर आईज कैन ओनली सी वर्चुअल इमेजेस, तो उसको वर्चुअल बनाने के लिए यहाँ पे आईपीस डालेंगे सच दैट ये फोकल लेंथ के विद इन रहेगा, तो एक दोबारा और मैग्नीफाइड वर्चुअल इमेज बन जाता है. that's a brief recap. I'm not going to talk more about the optical instruments part, because for that you'll have to revise. We can't digress, but that's basically the idea. So the only point we're using over here is object किधर है, objective के respect में, object focal length के मतलब almost focal length distance दूर है. That's the idea. That's how microscopes are used. Okay, object का distance from the objective is roughly f. It's roughly f. Now वो यहाँ पे बस वो point है. Anyways, this derivation is, you don't have to remember the derivation at all. In fact, ये derivation से answer आता ही नहीं है. Okay, there are some adjustments. तो ये derivation से result आता नहीं है, and I'll point that out. But just you can just hear it once, and इसके बाद you only need the formula. ठीक है? But for those who have a little curiosity, scientific curiosity, थोड़ा जल्दी से एक बार बता देता हूँ derivation के बारे में. तो यहाँ पे if I can zoom in, the angle that those two objects subtended on the microscope is alpha, ठीक है, and let's say the distance between the two objects is delta d. Distance between the two objects is delta d, and their distance from the objective itself is f. अब इनके कारण जब image बनता है, as you, if you remember, ठीक है, they don't form point images, they formed those diffraction circles, and what we are basically drawing over here is the central maxima, the central circle. तो ऐसा एक bright disk बन रहा है O2 के image के लिए, और ऐसा एक bright disk बन रहा है O1 के image के लिए, and we say कि they are just resolved if the center of O1 का image lies on the boundary of O2 का image, and vice versa. So when they just resolved, the distance between the centers is equal to the radius. The radius is 1.22 d lambda by b, where b is the angle of the diameter of the objective. तो अल्फा एक तरीके से आ रहा है अल्फा एक तरीके से आ रहा है डेल्टा d by f. तो अल्फा is 1.22 d lambda by b upon capital D. Alpha is 1.22 d lambda by b upon capital D. ठीक है, वहां से आ जाएगा कि डेल्टा डी के लिए कैपिटल डी कट जाएगा एंड डेल्टा डी कम्स आउट टू बी 1.22 f लैम्डा बाय b। ये ऐसा डिराइव करके आ रहा है। okay? This actually seems like a good formula. In fact, one would think कि यहाँ पे रुकना चाहिए. So the actual derivation may they go on to do something a little bit more strange. For some reason they don't stop here. You may wonder why, because f is straightforward, b is straightforward, these can easily be measured, lambda is straightforward. For some reason they don't stop over here. They continue further. So फिर you can see books like the NCERT make these claims. ठीक है, तो NCERT फिर क्या बोलता है कि यहाँ पे if theta is the half angle of the cone created by object and the objective. अब object एक point की तरह है, they are actually very close. We are using a microscope, okay? So we are really zooming in. So O1, O2 are technically close by. So I've just drawn them as a point object for now. They are going to subtend, they are going to create a cone, okay, an imaginary cone where they are like the vertex or the apex, and the objective is like the base of the cone. तो उस imaginary cone का half angle मान दो theta है, ठीक है, मान दो वो theta है. Height of the cone clearly f. अच्छा, tan theta is clearly b by 2 divided by f. Tan theta is b by 2 divided by f. And then I believe your NCERT says this, or I mean, this is what in fact a lot of books do. Then they say कि tan theta is b by 2 divided by f, and they say like, you know, theta छोटा है तो तुम tan theta को sin theta ले सकते हैं, और इसलिए sin theta is b by 2f. ठीक है, they say sin theta is b by 2f, claiming theta small. और ये सब क्यों कर रहे हैं? Because फिर वो क्या करते हैं, ये जो b by f फॉर्मूला है ना, b by f या f by b इस फॉर्मूला में जो है, वो f by b को इस इक्वेशन के हिसाब से फिर रीसब्स्टिट्यूट करते हैं as, what will it get substituted as? So f by b is 1 by 2 sin theta. Okay, so they substitute it as 1 by 2 sin theta. So if you can see यहाँ पे 1.22 है, lambda है, ये mu के बारे में फिलहाल अभी सोचो मत. But the other change is f by b has been replaced by 1 by 2 sin theta. And this is how they justify the result. Okay, that's a good attempt, but there are problems with that. Like when I was reading this, first of all, I couldn't understand why they didn't stop over here. This is a perfectly nice place to stop. And another thing I couldn't understand is, does this mean this formula is only true for small angles? Because I don't see why this angle has to be small. Our objective could be big. In fact, we'd want to keep a big objective for better resolution. The objective could be big. F could be small. Why should that angle be small? On what? That angle, it didn't make sense to me कि छोटा angle वाला reason is justified है. So I did a little bit of reading online. ये सब out of scope है. It's just for your curiosity to set, just to make a point, and then we can move on to just remembering the formula. So I searched online, and this is what I found online. Yes, some guy named Rudolph Kingslake, he's written some article. He says he's published this paper. He says, although it may seem like sin theta formula is an approximate one, हमें लग सकता है ये देख के कि ये approximation है. In reality, it is actually the correct formula. वो बिल्कुल सही है, ये सही है, ये approximately true है, ये approximately true है. In reality, it's found कि this is correct. मतलब ये जो finally यहाँ पे 2 sin theta जो आता है वो सही है. That is absolutely spot on correct. Now why is that correct? ठीक है, just वो भी थोड़ा complex है, but the point is, he says कि the lenses used in microscopes and professional cameras, etc., are adjusted to remove aberrations. In general, there are certain problems that take place. For us, one simple problem is कि when light gets focused, different colors would have different focal lengths. right? So that's called as chromatic aberration. They wouldn't all converge at the same point. So there are these aberrations, very complex idea, जिसके कारण there are certain corrections that they do to lenses. Yeah, हमें अभी फिलहाल PhD नहीं करना, but they do some corrections, जिसके कारण जो लेंस का जो कर्वेचर होता है, सरफेस होता है, वो स्ट्रिक्टली स्फीयरिकल नहीं होता है. In practicality, what the lens you'll use for a camera or you'll use for a microscope or a telescope, those lenses are not strictly spherical. Okay, there are certain changes. Those changes result in the sine theta formula being correct for all angles. Those changes result in the sine theta formula being correct for all angles. Okay, so moral of the story क्या है? Moral of the story है कि while that derivation to a point starts to make sense, okay, it's okay if you understand the derivation. Moral of the story is whether or not you understand the derivation, you will memorize this result. And the second thing you will tell yourself, this result is valid for all angles. Don't think angle बड़ा है तो तुम्हें tan theta use करना चाहिए. Just tell yourself tan theta गलत है, sin theta ही होना चाहिए. Those who don't bother with the derivation will have no problem. Those who bother to read the derivation, they'll have some problems. They'll be the ones who think कि नहीं बड़े एंगल में tan theta use करना चाहिए. तो उनके लिए बोल रहा हूँ कि जो derivation पढ़ रहा है, समझ रहा है, उसके लिए बोल रहा हूँ कि there is one aspect of this, one step which is a little out of scope, due to which the sine theta formula is correct. Don't change it for larger angles. Okay. Further, in fact, यहाँ पे एक और line है, to further make delta d small. Now this is something we can understand. Better resolution के लिए और भी पास वाले molecules को अगर देखना है, particles को देखना है, तो हम delta d को और अगर छोटा करना चाहेंगे, to be able to see even closer particles, the one thing we can do is we can reduce lambda, and lambda can be reduced in a smart way by filling the microscope with a fluid of refractive index mu. So if this region is filled with a fluid of refractive index mu, lambda will decrease, lambda will become lambda by mu. यहाँ पे जो इंटरफेरेंस होगा वो 1.22 d lambda की जगह d lambda by mu b होगा. Alright, so if I fill that region with a material of refractive index mu, lambda की जगह I'll have lambda by mu. That is the moral of the story. I'm glad you heard this once. It's okay if you never go through this derivation again. Telescope का बहुत easy था. यहाँ पे there is one step which is like beyond our scope. So definitely the point is, now please just remember this result. 1.22 lambda 2 mu sine theta. Okay, 2 mu sine theta. That's the formula. That's the minimum distance two particles can have. That's the minimum separation between two particles for them to be clearly seen by a microscope. Okay. इसमें mu sine theta, that term is called as the numerical aperture. Just remember that name. Okay, the term mu into sine theta is called as numerical aperture. Numerical aperture. It's going to be some number. Okay, mu and sine theta both are numbers. So this is called as numerical aperture. Just remember that term. And remember, resolving power is the reciprocal of this minimum distance. So it's not the reciprocal of the angle subtended, it's the reciprocal of the minimum distance. So it's going to be 2 mu sine theta by 1.22 lambda. Whenever you remember a formula, you should of course understand what the terms are. So the only new term in this formula is theta. What is this theta term? Okay, it's again one last time. It's the half angle of the cone created by those two objects, which are very close, by the way. So they look like a point, and the objective. वो जो कोन बनेगा ना, वो कोन का हाफ एंगल. जैसे तुम गॉस लॉ में लगाते वक्त you use that half angle to find flux of a point through a circle. वही angle theta. Okay. All right. Any doubt in this? Or did you get the idea that I was trying to just bring out? Again, remember, this is in your main syllabus only. Optical instruments, the pura chapter is in your main syllabus only. You're just going to have questions on the formula. Let me know when you're done copying this. Um, no doubt, right? Anyone wants me to wait on this page? And trust me, I mean, these are things which you don't feel like reading. है ना? I'll wait. लिख लो और जिन्होंने wait बोला है होने के बाद बता. These are things which we sometimes don't feel like reading. है ना? उतना मजा नहीं आता इसमें, but free के marks है ना? तो just हमारे mains exam के लिए go in remembering all this small stuff. Go in remembering these small details. And one of the main, even I never really liked reading. I had never read this. Main reasons I never read this was because no book really properly describes the derivation. You're left more confused than before. So HCV to just states that HCV ने तो in fact गलत लिखा है. हाँ, by the way, just please for this topic just refer to my notes. HCV has in the chapter optical instruments, I believe उसने microscope के लिए वो 1.22 भी नहीं लिखा है. Okay, that's one mistake. And how do we call that a mistake? We look at what the NCRT says. NCRT has written 1.22. NCRT पे based exam है जो NCRT बोलता है सही है. Okay? But even in that, like when you try to understand while the final formula is all correct in the NCRT, when you try to understand the proof, you're left with more questions and then answers because this didn't make sense. Why tan theta was sine theta? That angle is clearly big. So for these reasons, sometimes when you don't understand a derivation, you feel you don't understand the formula and you feel you can't use it, which is not true. You can use a formula even if you don't understand where it comes from. But कई बार ऐसा mental block होता है, इसलिए एक बार I've just walked you through this derivation. Okay. Telescope of course makes sense and that's easy to derive, and that if that derivation also help you understand why there is a resolving limit in the first place. Okay. हो गया लिख के जिसने भी बोला था वेट ये माइक्रोस्कोप का एक फॉर्मूला बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है ऑन. ओके लिख लो माइक्रोस्कोप का एक फॉर्मूला बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है ऑन पेज 34. यू गाइस विल ट्राई दैट and I'll discuss that in the next class. Again, just to save a little solving time in class, try that at home. 34 कल डिस्कस करेंगे, पूरा फॉर्मूला बेस्ड ही है. R इसमें और be very clear what these terms mean. Okay, this is not radius, this is resolving power of a microscope. It's not radius, this is defined as the reciprocal of the minimum separation between two particles just resolved while using a microscope. चलो डन बोल दिया शुभ ने। ओके 34 प्लीज घर पे एक बार ट्राई कर लो, ये पूरा फॉर्मूला बेस्ड है, कुछ है नहीं इसमें। ट्राई 34 35 another point again in the main syllabus. um, just again just know the formula, ज्यादा ज्यादा डेप्थ में नहीं जाएंगे। okay um, I think I've written the wrong spelling, I'll just cross check that once. I think it should be Fresnel. Yes, it should be Fresnel. Fresnel distance, ठीक है। जस्ट ये इसमें ज्यादा हम डेप्थ में जाएंगे ही नहीं, ठीक है। इसमें क्या है, the distance from a slit after which the spreading due to diffraction dominates and before which spreading is less and ray optics dominates. Okay, तो ये बस एक distance है। In fact once we learn the Huygens principle थोड़ा और तुम्हें समझ में आएगा क्यों एक spreading takes place, क्यों diffraction takes place once we do the Huygens principle. And the other day I was just thinking about the principle and I got to an idea and I quickly recorded a short video and I've uploaded that video in the Wave Optics drive as well, outside the support folder. So you can check that once I teach you Huygens principle, which will be tomorrow. And then you will, in a way, with that you'll be able to understand why diffraction takes place. That's just an extra idea that I got, but it seems to explain diffraction. Coming to this, यहाँ पे बस ऐसा है कि यार basically as light passes through, after light passes through any aperture, no, it generally starts to spread. Okay, it slowly starts to spread. Okay, it starts to spread. But that spreading increases as you move further and further away from the aperture or from the slit. So the spreading increases as you move further and further away from the slit. So this is just like a value like your Reynolds number. जैसे बोलते हैं Reynolds number पे कम distance पे it's predominantly, flow is predominantly streamlined. Reynolds number से बड़े ज़्यादा values पे the flow is turbulent. वैसा ही if you're at a distance, so this distance is called as Fresnel distance. It's a square by lambda. Okay, a square by lambda, where a is going to be the beam diameter or the aperture diameter that it just passes through. You can say b square by lambda as well. B is the value we've been using all this while. Okay, and ये अपना Fresnel distance है. For d, in fact, let's make it b. Now that's something we are more comfortable with. B square by lambda. So is the diameter of the beam, and beam का diameter initially वही होगा जो जिस slit से वो अभी pass किया है. Okay, so this is the beam diameter, या beam width. ठीक है. Fresnel distance b square by lambda. The claim is if d is a lot lesser than Fresnel distance, ray optics dominates. ठीक है. If you're closed and the beam has not spread out enough, तो ray optics dominates. Ray optics क्या था? बोलते हैं एक रे को सीधा जाना चाहिए, so इधर उधर मुड़ना नहीं चाहिए ना, सीधा जाना चाहिए. So you can sufficiently apply ray optics for distances lesser than your Fresnel distance, which is why when we use lenses and all in our lab, those distances are normally lesser than the Fresnel distance, because ये lambda काफी बड़ा होता है ना, lambda काफी छोटा होता है, तो ये Fresnel distance बड़ा होता है. So whenever we work in distances lesser than Fresnel distance, ray optics is very well valid. Only thing is when your distances are larger, far larger than your Fresnel distance, then diffraction dominates. इसका ज्यादा कुछ कर नहीं सकते, PSG नहीं कर सकते. We don't want to sit and see कहाँ से derive हुआ है. In fact, if we actually think of deriving it, then certain questions will arise कि why isn't 1.22 there, वगैरह वगैरह. So they are not paying attention to exact detail, just like different books differ over what Reynolds number is the transition value, right? Different books differ. किस Reynolds number पे streamline से turbulent होता है, some books say something, some books, other books say other things. So वैसा ही the exact value of this Fresnel distance was not very important, but it's just like a point कि तुम इससे काफी कम रहोगे तो you'll be sure कि ray optics दिखेगा, और तुम इससे काफी बड़े values पे जाओगे तो you'll be sure to see कि diffraction significant होगा. That's kind of the idea. Just remember the formula b square by lambda and remember the statement. That's it for your mains exam only again. Okay. After this, the next page onwards, we are going to go to interesting stuff. Trust me, ये एक last ऐसा थोड़ा weird सा चीज है. But next page, next concept we're going to look at is the concept of polarization. Okay, that's a nice, fascinating concept. D is distance from a slit. So as light moves away from a slit, it starts to spread out. Starts to spread out. So D will be the distance from the slit. So at distances lesser than the Fresnel distance from the slit or from the lens or from the aperture, you can assume ray optics is decently valid. And distance is greater than that Fresnel distance, you can say diffraction is valid. या डोमिनेट करता है, वैसे तो होता ही है, डिफ्रैक्शन स्टार्ट होता ही है, स्प्रेडिंग स्टार्ट होता ही है स्टार्टिंग से, बट इट्स सिग्निफिकेंट. यस स्लिट एंड स्क्रीन के बीच में डिस्टेंस बोल सकते हैं. बाकी एचसीवी में और भी थोड़ा चीज है. यू कैन एक फ्रेस्नल बाइप्रिज्म कुछ तो है, यू कैन इग्नोर दैट. वो सब है नहीं मेंस के सिलेबस में भी. एंड देयर इज अ सर्टेन पॉइंट वेयर वी ड्रॉ द लाइन एंड से कि अब इससे ज्यादा आउट ऑफ सिलेबस स्टफ हम देखेंगे नहीं. ठीक है. फ्रेस्नल डिस्टेंस भी तुम्हारे एसेट सिलेबस में ऐसा लिखा नहीं है मेंस के सिलेबस में, बट I've just mentioned it because it's a small point. You can just remember FYI. But let's now move on to more important things that are in the syllabus. Whatever, revise, how to revise stuff. Just go through your notes again first. Quickly go through the notes and also quickly go through the notes and also go through your notes and just again solve the same good questions that you have marked in your HCV. Okay, if everything was easy, then you're well versed with the chapter. You can focus on other subjects, other chapters. But if certain questions were tough and you marked them, just go back to those. Okay, solve the slightly tougher questions. Revise the basic concepts. There are things you have understood in class, but you may have forgotten. So just plan these notes very carefully. Just go through those notes. That should help you be conceptually strong. Okay. Is this related to optical isomerism? I'm not very sure. Not very sure. थोड़ा भूल गया हूँ मैं, but I'm not very sure if it has to do with polarization of light. Okay, I may be wrong, but वो dextrorotatory and levorotatory, I'm not sure if this is in a way linked with that. Okay? I could be wrong, but I'll have to check. But yeah, coming to polarization of light, again in your main syllabus, है ना? For those who are lazy to check what the syllabus of their two important exams are, इसलिए I'm spelling this out. But either way, have a habit of always checking the syllabus. तुम्हारे मेंस के syllabus में है, important topic है मेंस के syllabus में, interesting है, जल्दी से देख लेते हैं. ठीक है. तो देखो इसका idea क्या है. when light, okay, when light propagates along some direction, we know कि electric field oscillates perpendicular to it. We have already understood that. And we know the magnetic field further oscillates perpendicular to both of them, right? In the beginning of this chapter, I drew a light wave as though it was propagating along the x-axis, and the electric field as though it was propagating along the y-axis, and magnetic field as though it was propagating along the z-axis. Let me just show that diagram once. एक बार ये diagram था, है ना, ऐसा मैंने दिखाया था x y z. अब इसमें एक इंटरेस्टिंग सा फंडा है कि ये जो मैंने जो ड्रॉ किया है कि इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड वाई एक्सिस के लॉन्ग ऑसिलेट कर रहा है, दैट्स फाइन, दैट्स वेल एंड गुड, बट why should the electric field have a bias in normal light? Why should the electric field have a bias in the upward direction? That's a valid question, right? Why should it be? Why should electric field be in that? Why can't it be in this direction? Why can't it be in some direction in between? Right? By nature, there should be symmetry. There's a bias nahi hona chahiye. And that's absolutely true, because in reality, there are infinitely many directions perpendicular to a single direction. In fact, there is an entire plane perpendicular to a single direction, right? एक डायरेक्शन के परपेंडिकुलर एक पूरा प्लेन लाई करता है, वर्टिकल के परपेंडिकुलर पूरा हॉरिजॉन्टल प्लेन है, z एक्सिस के परपेंडिकुलर पूरा xy प्लेन है, x एक्सिस के परपेंडिकुलर फिलहाल पूरा yz प्लेन है. So we can say कि यार electric field has to be perpendicular to the x axis, but ऐसा नहीं है कि उसको सिर्फ y के along होना चाहिए. In reality, there is no such bias, and what we find is electric field could really oscillate along any direction. Moreover, ऐसा नहीं कि it picks a direction and maintains it. The direction along which it oscillates keeps changing rapidly with time and randomly with time. Okay, this all I've written ahead, so I'm just showing you, and I'll go to that, go to what I've written. So electric field एक सेकंड के लिए y के along होगा, अगले सेकंड randomly ऐसा z और नेगेटिव y के along होगा, थर्ड क्वाड्रेंट अगले सेकंड randomly ऐसा वापस फर्स्ट क्वाड्रेंट, फिर फोर्थ quadrant, second quadrant, ऐसा it will keep randomly changing its direction, and according to that magnetic field भी डायरेक्शन चेंज करेगा. इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड और मैग्नेटिक फील्ड आपस में परपेंडिकुलर होने चाहिए. इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड डायरेक्शन चेंज हो गया, नेचुरली मैग्नेटिक फील्ड अपना डायरेक्शन चेंज करेगा. So these randomly and rapidly keep changing their direction. This is normal light. Light is supposed to technically be like this. It should not have a bias towards one specific direction. Okay, so when light, coming back to this, so there are infinitely many directions perpendicular to the direction of propagation, as I said. In light that is said to be polarized, the line along which the electric field oscillates, lies in the plane perpendicular to the direction of propagation. We know that the line along which E oscillates, that's perpendicular to the direction of propagation. अगर डायरेक्शन ऑफ प्रोपगेशन एक्स एक्सिस है तो इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड वाई जेड प्लेन में होगा, बट क्या एग्जैक्ट डायरेक्शन होगा वो फिक्स नहीं है. द डायरेक्शन कीप्स चेंजिंग रैपिडली and randomly. So it is in the yz plane, it is perpendicular to the path that light is moving along, but that direction is not fixed, it keeps changing rapidly and randomly. This is said to be light which is unpolarized. Right? Even the English word polarized means someone who has who is very biased towards one particular opinion, you know, towards one political view. He is strongly in favor of one, let's say one political party. That such a person is, or one ideology, such a person is said to be polarized. Unpolarized would be an open-minded person, somebody who's not biased. So in that sense also, like unpolarized light is where the electric field is not biased. to be in one specific direction, right? So it can be in any direction. However, when the line of oscillation of the electric field stays constant in its direction, अच्छा ये डायग्राम में मैं वही दिखा रहा था, ठीक है? सर्कल का कुछ पॉइंट नहीं है, सर्कल इज जस्ट टू शो द परपेंडिकुलर प्लेन एंड फॉर मी टू ड्रॉ करेक्ट एरो साइजेस. सर्कल का कुछ पॉइंट नहीं है, लाइट ऐसा जा रहा है पिंक लाइन के लॉन्ग और वो पर्पल डायरेक्शन बता रहा है अलग अलग directions of your electric field, different directions of oscillation of your electric field. Okay, so that's what the purple was doing. So the general idea I was trying to show was that direction keeps changing randomly. However, when the line of oscillation of the electric field stays constant in its direction, then we say the light is plane polarized or linearly polarized. So when the electric field, the line of oscillation stays fixed, जैसे यहाँ पे मैंने क्या दिखाया, बस वाई एक्सिस अपवर्ड ही है ना? इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड उसी लाइन के अलॉन्ग ऑसिलेट कर रहा है. When the line along which it oscillates stays fixed, then we say light is plane polarized or linearly polarized. Both words mean the same. Both words mean the same. All right. Now, if ये या तो एक्चुअली मेन पॉइंट है, नीचे जो लिख रहा हूँ बस एक एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट है, वो बस बता रहा हूँ, लाइक जस्ट FYI, we'll not study it more, but एक्स्ट्रा आइडिया है कि अगर वो लाइन ऑफ ऑसिलेशन रोटेट करता है but not randomly, if it rotates uniformly so that the tip of the electric field moves along a circle. So if our electric field starts now rotating in a uniform manner such that its tip traces out a circle, then we say light is circularly polarized. Just FYI. So यहाँ पे क्या है, लाइट एक डायरेक्शन में फिक्स नहीं है बट फिर भी वो एक रेपिटेटिव पैटर्न फॉलो करता है. Therefore it's in a way polarized, but it's circularly polarized. वो घूमते जाता है. The tip traces a circle, hence the name circularly polarized. Whereas if the tip traces an ellipse, it is said to be elliptically polarized. इसका और कुछ ज्यादा कुछ कर नहीं सकते, ये बस FYI for your information है. Okay, so the tip traces an ellipse, it's said to be elliptically polarized. So far, these were the main points on this page. Moreover, unpolarized light को हम normally diagram में कैसे represent करेंगे? We'll always represent it like this. Okay, this diagram in a way shows कि मतलब the point of this representation is to tell us कि electric field का direction fixed नहीं है. ये सारे directions possible. That's the point. Okay, just copy this. Give me a second before I forget. ये यहाँ पे जो correction किया था, just upload this. लिख लो, लिख के हो गया बता दो, डाउट है तो पूछो. हो गया क्या लिखे? I mean, I have no idea how long I've been on this page. Anyone still writing? No, लिख. By the way, I just realized कि अपना 2 घंटे का लेक्चर है. That's interesting. मतलब तुम्हारा पहला लेक्चर 1.5 hours का होता है, सेकंड थर्ड लेक्चर भी टेक्निकली 1.5 hours का होता है. और ये वाला 2 आवर्स का होता है। नाइस, गुड, that will help us comfortably finish this. So all the main concepts are done. Huygens baki hai, but Huygens is just theoretical. And then there are these small random points from here and there, which I don't want to leave out. We'll finish the small random points from here and there as well. In my track, what is left? For, I mean, I don't know what pace, how pace is going to split it further on, but like what is left in physics for you guys is magnetism, modern physics, and some more mains chapters, mains exclusive chapters. Magnetism, modern physics, and some more mains exclusive chapters. That's what is left. Okay. Okay. Done. Acha. Now, okay, we're going to look at this instrument called as a polarizer. So an instrument used to produce polarized light from unpolarized light is called a polarizer. Unpolarized light by default बनता है ना? Actually, just as I was saying this, मेरे को एक weird recollection आया कि I think तुम्हारा जो ये जो optical chemistry में जो optical isomerism होता है, I think that has to do with polarization. I don't know why I got this weird flashback, but I'll look into it. I think that has to do with polarization. Yeah, I may be 50% wrong. I'll check it out for my curiosity. But I don't know, ऐसा एक weird flashback आया कि that bending is actually talking about polarization. Let's see. But coming back to this, an instrument used to create polarized light from unpolarized light is called a polarizer. An instrument used to create polarized light from unpolarized light is called a polarizer. Okay, so इसमें क्या है? That's a fairly straightforward definition. Polaroid is one such instrument which polarizes light. Okay, so Polaroids and polarizers, you can use them interchangeably. Polarizer in a way defines the function, and Polaroid is the name of the instrument. Like, for example, हो सकता है geyser and heater, right? So heater defines what our geyser does, but geyser is the name, the popular name of the device. So we're saying Polaroid is basically a polarizer. It polarizes light. What are Polaroids made up of? So they are plain sheets in the form of circular discs, which contain long parallel chains of hydrocarbons, which become conducting at optical frequencies. Optical frequencies are high frequencies of the order of 10 to the power 15 hertz. So when these hydrocarbons get exposed to electric fields being rapidly oscillating at this frequency, and that's a very large frequency. So when they get exposed to electric fields rapidly oscillating at this frequency, something happens. Again, this is again FYI. कुछ तो होता है, कुछ तो chemistry अंदर होता है, कीड़ा, जिसके कारण they become conducting at these frequencies. Okay, they become conducting at these frequencies. What then happens is, when light passes through a Polaroid, the component of the electric field parallel to these chains get absorbed in setting up currents in the chains. Okay, so don't worry about why and how they get conducting. You can research in your own time later. But the point is, these fields which are parallel to these hydrocarbons, they get absorbed in this activity of setting up current in the chains. ठीक है, but the components perpendicular to the hydrocarbon chains get transmitted. The components perpendicular to the hydrocarbon chains get transmitted. This direction perpendicular to the chain is called as the transmission axis of a Polaroid. So the direction perpendicular to the chains is ultimately allowing, मतलब उस डायरेक्शन परपेंडिकुलर चेन्स में जो इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड के कंपोनेंट्स है वो ट्रांसमिट हो जाता है, वो अब्सॉर्ब नहीं होता है, वो पास होता है थ्रू द पोलरॉइड. So that direction perpendicular to the chains is called as the transmission axis of a Polaroid. This is the most important point. यहाँ तक थोड़ा just brief में एक मतलब आइडिया दे दिया क्या होता है पोलरॉइड के अंदर, क्या मैकेनिज्म है. But the bottom line is ultimately knowing what the transmission axis is. In any Polaroid, we normally represent a Polaroid using a disc, okay, in any diagram, and the transmission axis is represented by a line inside the disc. So whenever you see a line and a disc, okay, that device will be a Polaroid, and the line will not be your hydrocarbon. ठीक है, वो बस अंदर का मैकेनिज्म समझने के लिए एक बार सुन लो, भूल गए तो भी चलेगा. But the line represents the transmission axis. This is like a slit. कभी I think चकली बनाते वक्त you might have seen how they push batter through a disc with a small. Sometimes the disc has some चकली के लिए कुछ star shaped aperture होता है, but I believe some other Gujarati snacks के लिए they can have slits like this, है ना? And you as you एक piston जैसा you push the batter through that slit and you get those, I don't know what to call them, it's a long shaped थोड़ा फाफड़ा जैसा, you get those snacks made through them. So that's how your transmission axis is going to be. ठीक है, whatever light is going to now pass through this, as unpolarized light passes through this Polaroid, only the electric field parallel to your transmission axis comes out. ठीक है, चकली की तरह, whatever is the technical name of that thing, but only that which is parallel to that slit, parallel to the transmission axis, it's like a slit but parallel to the transmission axis, that comes out of your Polaroid. All other direction wale electric fields, they get absorbed. Okay, that's the idea. So when unpolarized light basically passes through this Polaroid, it emerges linearly polarized parallel to the transmission axis. So these Gatia hai kya? Acha. Somebody saying it's called as Gatia. Okay. First I read that as Gatia, so I thought you're insulting me. Then I realized what you meant. Okay. So when unpolarized light passes through your transmission axis, you can understand how light ऐसा निकल रहा है. फिर उसके बाद, as it passes through the next Polaroid, you can understand how this is going to emerge parallel to this transmission axis. When it passes through the next Polaroid, it's going to emerge parallel to this transmission axis, and so on and so forth. Each procedure, it's like you might have seen in cartoons, Tom and Jerry में, as Tom passes through a fat pipe, वो भी एक ऐसा thick cylinder की तरह बन जाता है. As he goes through a narrow pipe, उसका body का shape एक पतला cylinder हो जाता है. Right? So many times they take the shape of whatever they're passing through cartoon में. वैसे ही हो रहा है यहाँ पे life में, cartoon की तरह है ना? So it's basically yes. So basically the direction in which it's polarized is going to depend on the previous polarizer. So यहाँ पे light is going to be parallel to the transmission axis of the previous polarizer. But some of you, like one of you pointed out, कि does this mean that the intensity is going to keep decreasing? Right? Absolutely. Because even as this light goes in, this light may have some component in that direction which passes, but the other component perpendicular to that direction is going to get absorbed. So intensity would thereby keep decreasing as you pass through successive Polaroids, which is what the law on the next page is about. Okay, so there is a law which we're going to see, which talks about how these intensities decrease. और मैंने थोड़ा ऐसा डायग्राम में दिखाने की कोशिश किया है by drawing smaller and smaller arrows. in a way to show कि ये कम intense होते जा रहा है. ठीक है, we'll see that law. जल्दी लिख लो. And as always, like if somebody doesn't want to write, you can. That's fine. These notes are always going to be there on the drive. This part, I think, I've mainly referred to the HCV for this section. When HCV explains things well, it's really good. Certain things where he skips points, then that becomes a little, you lose. I mean, at least those are topics I'm less interested in. Topics where the HCV is not explained properly. The ones he has explained properly is quite interesting. Do higher frequencies affect our ears, or it just goes unheard? I'm guessing you're talking about sound. And I'm guessing you're talking about ultrasonic sound. Does it affect our ears? And I mean, I would guess it does. It definitely goes unheard, but it could affect our ears if it's loud enough. I mean, if it's of a high enough, in a high enough intensity. एक तो one of you is pointing out कि frequency ज़्यादा होगा तो energy भी ज़्यादा होगा. बिल्कुल सही है. If that energy is landing on your eardrums, it's bound to do something to your eardrums. Just maybe too fast for your ears to make sense of that, but हो सकता है. I mean, these are things. These are my guesses. Okay, I mean, I'm not. I don't have all knowledge in this matter. Okay, anyone wants me to wait here? But I can definitely say forget 20,000 hertz. Anything above 2,000 hertz and all is quite irritating. Forget about higher frequencies. The high beyond our normal talking range and all. Of course, we have higher overtones in our voice as well, but predominant sounds are all within 1,000 hertz. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 1,500 hertz. Yeah, above that, it's quite sharp and quite irritating. All right, हो गया पेज लिख के. I think. See, a law of, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just gonna guess malice. Okay, if you're from Kerala, you can say law of Malus. Again, but either the law of whatever this is, law of malice is an important law. It describes how the intensity of light changes on passing through a Polaroid. Okay, so now this is the idea. बहुत easy है. एक बार समझ लो, बाद में use कर लो result को. Derivation भी समझ में आ सकता है और result भी memorize ही कर लो ताकि जल्दी answer निकलेगा. Idea is very simple. What we'll do is we'll divide the electric field into two components, one parallel and one perpendicular to the transmission axis for obvious reasons. Because the one perpendicular to the transmission axis is going to get absorbed. The one parallel to the transmission axis is going to remain. Okay, so find these components and use the parallel one which remains to find the final intensity. Use the parallel one which remains to find the final intensity. So just to go over the symbols I'll be using, final intensity by initial intensity, I dash by I. Okay, intensity after Polaroid upon intensity before Polaroid is going to be, since it's proportional to square of your electric field amplitude, so it's going to be E dash square by E square. E dash is electric field amplitude after the Polaroid. E is electric field amplitude before the Polaroid. Dash means after. But E dash will be a component of this electric field, and more specifically, it will be the component parallel to the transmission axis. So therefore, यहाँ पे मैं लिख रहा हूँ E parallel square by E. Those two lines you see over there, they are standing for parallel. And similarly, you'll also see me use the symbol for perpendicular to represent the perpendicular component. Okay, so E dash is only going to be the parallel component of E. That upon original E ka square, ka ratio ka square will give you I dash upon I. That's the basic idea. अब इसमें दो केस होता है. The actual law is for the second case, when polarized light again passes through a polarizer. Okay, that's what the law is actually for, polarized light passing through a polarizer again. But मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैंने sometimes students are not aware of this first case as well, so I'm also spelling this out nicely. What happens when an unpolarized light passes through a Polaroid in the first place? तब intensity कैसा change होता है? I'm going to spell that out to you and I'm putting it as case 1. फिर second case भी देखेंगे. तो पहले जब unpolarized light passes through a Polaroid, what we say is, by symmetry in the unpolarized light, by symmetry both components should be equal. Bias नहीं होना चाहिए. तो उतना ही on an average parallel component होना चाहिए जितना perpendicular component है. ट्रांसमिशन एक्सिस मैंने वर्टिकल लिया है, तो उतना ही हॉरिजॉन्टल कंपोनेंट होना चाहिए जितना वर्टिकल कंपोनेंट है ऑन एन एवरेज. नाउ my initial electric field is the resultant of these two. So Pythagoras theorem say it's going to be E parallel square plus E perpendicular square. Since E parallel and E perpendicular are the same, that becomes root of twice of E parallel square. और E parallel को बाहर निकाल दोगे तो E parallel √2 हो जाएगा. So electric field on an average can be said to be E parallel √2. E parallel times √2. Okay. Then my final electric field E dash is going to be E parallel, because only the one parallel to the transmission axis remains. E parallel itself by this formula is E divided by √2. So E dash is E by √2. E dash is E by √2. So now we have E dash in terms of E. Now apply this formula. I dash is I into E dash by E ka whole square. E dash by E ka whole square. E dash by E we just saw is 1 upon √2. So I dash is I into 1 by √2 ka square. Okay. And 1 by √2 ka square is 1 by 2. So that tells me I dash is I by 2. So basically our intensity gets halved when unpolarized light passes through a Polaroid. Okay. So while creating polarized light, तभी ही intensity आधा हो जाता है. ठीक है, intensity आधा हो जाता है. Remember this point. Most people don't know this. They actually only know the law of Malus, which is on the next page. They know that formula. A lot of people don't know this. ये भी important है. ठीक है? And while it's, of course, you should understand what I have derived. It's quite straightforward. Nonetheless, make sure you remember this. You don't have time to derive and rediscover these things in the exam. Mains exam है, time constraint रहेगा, तो ये सब रट लो. Mains वाले सारे चीज formulas जो भी है mains के formulas रटना चाहिए तुम्हें. And advanced के जो भी formulas हैं, as much as possible derive करना आना चाहिए. That's one ground rule. Mains के formulas रट लो, because mains में time constraint होता है, and they will not really test your understanding of the derivation. They only test your application of the formula. But advanced के जो भी formulas है, जो भी किया है mechanics में, ये electromagnetism में वगैरह सारे जो भी formulas है, as much as possible remember their derivations, because advanced में time constraint उतना नहीं है जितना mains में होता है. there are fewer questions definitely. Time constraint utna nahi hai, but they will definitely test your understanding of these derivations. So that's one point to keep in mind. Of course, places where the derivations are too weird, like mirror formula ka derivation वगैरह, those you can skip, or those you can just revise by reading. But more crucial conceptual derivations you should always remember. हो गया तो बता दो. Okay, some people have said done. What about the others? लिखो लिखो. हो गया? जिसने 1 minute बोला. How many lectures will it take to cover? Modern physics is big. I mean, वो एक chapter नहीं है, वो 2-3 chapter है. लगेगा time जैसा waves की तरह वो एक section हो गया. It will take some time. I myself have not taught it for a long time, so I don't know how many lectures exactly, but yeah, it will take some time. But it's still not going to take as much as the other magnetism जो उधर बाकी, which is why I may have main chapters also, I guess, in my. Anyways, polarized light through a Polaroid. Yes, yes, yes. Modern physics तो काफी कुछ similar है to what you've done in chemistry, and hopefully we can save time in that area. Like photoelectric effect same होता है, atomic structure जो Bohr's atom वाला part है वो same होता है, so we could expect to save a little time over there. फिर X-rays extra है, थोड़ा radioactivity extra है, ठीक है, we'll see. All right, polarize light through a Polaroid. So let the angle between the line of polarization of the incoming light and the transmission axis be theta. Okay. So now let's say कि अब यहाँ पे ये polarized light है और ये ऐसा polarizer के through pass हो रहा है and polarizer अपने polarized light से angle theta बनाता है. Okay. Then as we know, टॉम एंड जेरी की तरह ये जो लाइट निकलेगा वो अब इस डायरेक्शन के along polarized होगा, ठीक है, it's going to take the shape of whatever it passed through in that sense. तो इस डायरेक्शन में polarized होगा, but in fact इसको अगर फ्रंट व्यू की तरह से, फ्रंट व्यू से अगर मैं दिखाऊंगा तो the incoming ray was like this, the incoming ray was like this, and the Polaroid Polaroid made an angle of theta with the incoming line of polarization. तो incoming ray vertically polarized था और ये Polaroid vertical के साथ theta angle बना रहा था. ठीक है, तो ट्रांसमिशन एक्सिस और लाइन ऑफ पोलराइजेशन के बीच में एंगल थीटा है. वो एक इंपॉर्टेंट एंगल है जो सवाल में दिया जाएगा, थोड़ा डायरेक्टली इनडायरेक्टली बट दिया जाएगा. तुम्हें क्या करना है, द मिनट यू गेट एन एंगल, आई थिंक यू नो व्हाट्स the next obvious step. Resolve your electric field into two components, one parallel to the axis, one perpendicular to the axis. The parallel one will be based on whatever the angle is. In this case theta hai, so it will be E cos theta. That will be the perpendicular one will be E sin theta. So you'll have E parallel as E cos theta, E perpendicular as E sin theta. Okay, what comes out finally is the parallel one. So E dash is E parallel. So E dash is E cos theta. E dash is E cos theta. Using the fact that intensity is proportional to E ka square, so I dash is I times E dash square by E square. But since E dash is E cos theta, E dash by E is cos theta. So I dash is I cos theta ka square. That is your law of Malus. Okay? I dash is I cos theta ka square. So when light passes through a Polaroid, जिसका transmission axis makes an angle theta with the line of polarization, then your intensity changes by this amount. And as you know, cos square theta is going to be less than 1. So definitely your, in all cases except कि अगर theta 0 है, अगर transmission axis original light के parallel है, तो obviously it will pass without any change in intensity. But if it's any even slightly different than 0, for all non-zero angles, you will have a reduction in intensity, and the new intensity is given by this formula. This formula is called as the law of Malus. लिख लो जल्दी. बस थीटा दिया जाएगा directly and indirectly. Keep multiplying. Every time it passes through a polarizer, this factor gets multiplied. First time it passed through a polarizer, let's say the angle was 30. Okay, so then I dash becomes I cos square 30. Next time again, while passing through a polarizer, the polarizer made an angle 60 degrees with this. So it becomes I previous value I cos square 30 into again next polarizer के कारण cos square 60. So if there are polarizers one after the other, you keep multiplying that. But just know the difference. This formula is when you have, this is when you have polarized light to start with. That's why I've labeled this as case 2. पहले से polarized light है, तब ये formula काम करता है, for obvious reasons. Otherwise theta is only not defined. अगर पहले unpolarized light है, so then there the point is it just gets divided by 2. Unpolarized to polarized intensity आधा होता है, उसके आगे subsequent polarizers use करोगे तो intensity ये cos square theta के factor से multiply होते जाता है. Multiply होना मतलब cos square theta तो 1 से कम है तो कम होते जाता है. ओके, हो गया लिख के. So again, very simple idea. That's why these are most, I mean, if you know this, I don't think there are questions which you cannot solve in this concept. Okay, so very easy, very scoring. Questions are very straightforward. I have tried to make it a little tricky. I mean, I of course still don't think it's tricky, but there is a question on page 40 which you can try at home. Thoda sa just making you work hard to get the answer. But the again concept is simple and you have to just be careful while you apply the formula. So 40 as well, page 40 as well, try at home to save us a little time, and we'll be discussing that tomorrow. When you try it at home, just try to read the question and don't look at the answer. Just read the question, try it once on your own. Then you can cross check the answer. And anyways, I'll discuss it tomorrow. That said, is anyone still writing this? If so, please say wait. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 40. Just that's your homework question. Just try. Just to tell you what is in this question. Ye given hai. This is given. Okay. And I am only asking I triple dash. Don't find I dash, I double dash. This is unpolarized light passing through eventually एक के बाद एक 3 polarizers. बस final intensity तुम्हें find करना है. If it's not clear, zoom in. You can see how ये ray makes an angle of, in fact, forget the ray. This polarizer makes an angle of 15 degrees with the vertical, and that polarizer makes an angle of 60 degrees with the vertical in the other direction. Okay, so you can zoom in and you can easily see those values. Try 40 at home. I just want to save a little time. Okay, so try 40 at home. Okay, page 41. Again, this is very theoretical. Very difficult to ask a numerical question on this. So let's just read this. Now this is observed. Okay, so a guy named Brewster observed this kind of effect when unpolarized light reflected off and refracted through a surface. Okay, so when unpolarized light reflects off and refracts through a surface, like it could be the surface of the surface of water, or the surface of snow, or could be a wet road. So when light reflects off and refracts through, so it has to be a kind of transparent surface, so light can refract through it as well. When this happens, what happens is the two components of the electric field do not get reflected and refracted equally. Okay, what are these two components? The incident light, being unpolarized, contains equal magnitudes of the electric field in both components. Okay, unpolarized है, biased नहीं है, so it contains equal magnitude of your electric field in both components. But what are these two components? So if you look at this diagram, okay, this is just a simple, on the face of it, it's just a simple diagram जहाँ पे reflection भी हो रहा है और थोड़ा refraction भी हो रहा है. Reflection भी हो रहा है, थोड़ा refraction भी हो रहा है. Simple सा ray diagram है. And you guys know the laws of reflection and refraction state ki the incident ray and the final rays and the normal should all lie in one plane. And right now that is the plane of your screen. The incident ray, the reflected ray, refracted ray, they're all lying in the plane of your screen. They all lie in one plane, the plane of the diagram. Okay. Consider one component to be a field in the plane of the diagram. So the field in the plane of the diagram are represented by green arrows. Green arrows are the fields in the plane of the diagram. Okay, I'm representing them using the green arrows. They're in the plane. They of course have to be perpendicular to the direction of propagation. So light ऐसा propagate हो रहा है तो उसके perpendicular होना ही पड़ेगा उससे. Electric field उसके perpendicular होता ही है. But this is the one in the plane of a diagram. Okay, not coming towards you, but in the plane of a diagram. Okay, one can also say it's perpendicular to the surface. Okay? So actually surface horizontal है. ये वैसा perpendicular नहीं है, but it's in the plane perpendicular to the surface. So it lies in one vertical plane. It lies in a vertical plane. The surface अगर horizontal है, तो this E2 can be said to lie in a vertical plane. So in that sense, this is one component I'm talking about. I think a good language will be in the plane of the diagram. Okay? In the plane of the diagram is one component. The other component is perpendicular to the plane of the diagram and parallel to the surface. You can notice how this other component is a component coming towards you out of the screen. तुम्हारे तरफ या तुमसे दूर, उस that component I'm referring to as E1. Okay, that component coming towards you I'm referring to as E1. The component in the diagram is E2. The component perpendicular to the diagram is E1. और इसको कैसे represent कर सकता हूँ? I have no option but to represent it by a dot, right? Because vectors coming out of the plane and into the plane are represented by dots and crosses, right? So for this, in this case, I'm using a dot to represent a vector perpendicular to this entire plane. But how do I represent the magnitudes of them? So I'm going to represent the magnitudes for the green guy, obviously, by drawing a bigger vector, bigger size. So as you can see, यहाँ पे size है ना, छोटा है, कुछ जगह पे बड़ा है. So big green arrow मतलब big size, large electric field. But for the one perpendicular to the plane, I'm using the dot ka size. So if I draw a big purple dot, means the perpendicular component is big. And if I draw a small purple dot, means the perpendicular component is small. Okay, so I hope you now understood this, my diagram. What is observed? I think there's not a lot of why behind this, but this is what is observed. What is observed is component 1 is strongly reflected for some reason. Component 1 मतलब the perpendicular one, जो तुम्हारे तरफ component होगा, that is strongly reflected. How have I shown this in the diagram? How have I shown कि this is strongly reflected? देखो, जो अंदर गया बड़ा सा purple dot, यहाँ पे reflection में छोटा, मतलब फिर भी थोड़ा बड़ा purple dot दिख रहा है, पर refraction में बहुत ही छोटा purple dot दिख रहा है. Implying what? Implying कि E1 is big in reflection and E1 is small in refraction. So the component towards you, perpendicular to the screen, is more reflected than it is refracted. It has a greater component in the reflected wave than in the refracted wave. The opposite is true for component 2. So the one in the plane of the diagram is strongly refracted. As you can see, there is a bigger green arrow in the refracted wave and a smaller green arrow in the reflected wave. So this is something, Brewster observed. Okay, ये जल्दी से draw कर लो. Any queries, any doubts? I mean, apart from like why this happens. So this is just something that's observed. Okay, so if you don't, one of you said you don't fully understand what I mean by components of electric field. तो एक काम करता हूँ. Let me just switch on my camera. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Is it on focus for you guys? ठीक है, तो लाइट जब ऐसा जा रहा है ना, लाइट जब ऐसा जा रहा है ना, लाइट जब ऐसा जा रहा है, there are infinitely many directions perpendicular to a given direction. Infinitely many directions. So इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड को बस ये पीले लाइन के परपेंडिकुलर होना है. एक पीले लाइन के परपेंडिकुलर ये पूरा प्लेन आ जाता है. So you can see my hand is now forming a plane and my hand is perpendicular to the yellow line. This entire plane में कहीं ना कहीं इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड लाई कर सकता है. So let E2 be the component in the plane of my diagram and let E1 be the component perpendicular to the plane of my diagram. तो इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड वैसा कैसे भी हो सकता था ना, ऐसा हो सकता था, ऐसा हो सकता था. तो let in the plane of the diagram वाला component be E2 and perpendicular to the diagram component be E1. We can't draw a 3D diagram, therefore I've represented E1 by a dot. Does it now make sense? Bigger dot means यहाँ पे component बड़ा है and bigger green arrow means ये वाला component बड़ा है. What I said was ये जो component होता है perpendicular to the plane of the diagram. Okay, मतलब तुम्हारा actually ये जो अगर अपना refracted surface horizontal है ना, अगर ये मेरा ये जो surface है interface horizontal है, So this is the component which is also going to be horizontal. अगर ये ऐसा ground को strike करके जा रहा है ना, this is the component which is also going to be horizontal. Electric field could lie anywhere in this plane, but this is the component which is going to be parallel to the surface, horizontal. तो ये जो component है वो strongly refract होता है. For some reason वो ज्यादा refract होता है, कम reflect होता है. I'm so sorry, गलत बोला, पूरा गलत. ये component ज्यादा reflect होता है, कम refract होता है. I'll use the word transmit for some time because that sounds different. ये component ज्यादा reflect होता है और कम transmit होता है. कम transmit होता है. कौन सा? The one perpendicular to your diagram but parallel to your surface. Whereas the other one in the plane of your diagram, वो ज्यादा transmit होता है, कम reflect होता है. Now you got it. This is what is observed. Okay. All right. लिख के हो गया तो बता दो. Maybe I'll just keep my camera on like this for some more time till we navigate through this section. हो गया तो बता दो. या wait, rather wait बोलना है तो wait बोल दो. Nobody is saying wait. All done. No. All right. So now this is one interesting idea. Okay, this is one very interesting application. And that is key. Light reflected by a horizontal surface like water, for instance, like water, snow, or a wet road. This light we now know is going to be more polarized in the horizontal plane. Purple dot. Okay, so just to revise, reflected light, जब light horizontal plane से reflect होता है, reflected wave is strongly polarized in which direction? Perpendicular to the diagram, which basically means it's going to be strongly polarized in the horizontal direction. ये plane horizontal है, ये plane horizontal है, तो ये purple dot भी actually horizontal vector को imply कर रहा है. So light which is reflected is strong in the horizontal component. ठीक है, it's strong in the horizontal component. How is this idea used in a smart way? This is used in the design of Polaroid glasses. Okay, you've heard of nowadays you have sunglasses which claim to have Polaroid glasses in them, Polaroid lenses. What does that mean? So Polaroid glasses have a vertical transmission axis through which the rays polarized horizontally will not be able to pass. So we saw कि जो reflected rays है, they were predominantly horizontal. ज्यादा horizontal था और कम ऐसा vertical था. ठीक है? और क्या होता है? Sometimes when, especially with water and snow and even a wet road, you will find that there is some light which is coming directly from an object. Okay, let's say light is coming from the sun or light is coming from the headlight of a car. But then there is also this light which reflects off the surface and comes to your eyes. And normally these surfaces से जो ये reflect होके light आता है, that is very strong in intensity. If you look at the surface of water sometimes, okay, on a hot sunny day, it can be quite blinding. It can appear, in fact, snow is definitely quite blinding. They say whenever you go, whenever you go to a place where there's snow, you must wear Polaroid glasses. Otherwise, the light coming from the snow is quite bright. So what is really happening? How do Polaroid glasses help in that? So what they do is, as opposed to ordinary goggles क्या करेगा? पूरा का पूरा light जो पूरा दुनिया से तुम्हारे आंख की तरफ आ रहा है, पूरा चीज को डिम करेगा, ठीक है। डज नॉट अप्लाई एनीथिंग स्मार्ट, इट जस्ट इज स्लाइटली ओपेक, तो वो पूरा का पूरा लाइट को डिम करेगा। तो ऐसा नहीं कि जो ज्यादा लाइट रिफ्लेक्ट मतलब स्नो से आ रहा था, रिफ्लेक्ट होके स्नो से आ रहा था, उसको सिलेक्टिवली कम नहीं कर रहा है गॉगल्स, ऑर्डिनरी गॉगल्स, वो सब कुछ कम कर रहा है। So you will just see a darker image of anyways very bright snow and very dim surroundings. But what do Polaroid glasses do? These glasses have a vertical transmission axis. उसको पता है कि जो रिफ्लेक्ट होके आ रहा है, they are predominantly polarized in the horizontal plane. तो ये horizontal वाले ट्रांसमिट नहीं होते हैं। तो a very small percentage, a very healthy percentage of light reflecting off the surfaces pass through the transmission axis. जिसके कारण क्या करता है पोलरॉइड, they thus selectively reduce the glare due to the light reflecting from these surfaces without considerably affecting the light coming from other places. बाकी जगह से जो लाइट आता है वो anyways unpolarized है, तो उनका इंटेंसिटी को ज्यादा मतलब ऑफ कोर्स बाई 2 करेगा, बट फिर भी ज्यादा उतना ज्यादा कम नहीं करेगा जितना जो रिफ्लेक्ट होके आ रहा है उसको कम करेगा। एंड दैट्स द एडवांटेज ऑफ पोलरॉइड ग्लासेस। ओके, नाउ yeah, we learn a lot of physics, but this concept was one of the places where I actually felt कि यार physics real life में useful है, मतलब जो भी जेई में पढ़ा है वो real life में useful है। This is one place where I actually felt it was useful because in I think almost 1.5 years ago I went with my wife to Lakshadweep, ठीक है, beautiful place, but this time before going we said chalo let's buy some sunglasses. And while we were at the store, suddenly I remembered this particular concept, and I said, no, we have to buy Polaroid glasses. Let's not buy ordinary glasses. Let's buy Polaroid glasses. Okay. This is what Polaroid glasses did to the trip. All right. So just to show you one picture. So this is a picture that I clicked. Okay. Just using my phone camera. Looking at this, you may think my phone camera is really bad, but this is a picture I clicked using my phone camera. And as you can see, you can hardly tell if the person is standing in water. Can you even see water in this? That looks like sand to me. ऐसा लग रहा है दूर किधर थोड़ा blue है, but the supposed blue waters of Lakshadweep are not even visible. This all looks white. And why does this look white? This light is very strongly reflected. Okay, that's why your camera and even your eyes see like this. ठीक है, व्हाइट सैंड लग रहा है ना, ये एक्चुअली सब पानी है, पूरा व्हाइट सैंड लग रहा है। एंड कैमरा में भी गंदा आता है और आंख को भी मतलब ऐसा विद द नेकेड आई आल्सो इट सीम्स quite intense. You can of course see blue with the naked eye, but then it'll seem very intense and you'll feel very hot and you'll get tired and you'll think like अरे क्या trip है। But this is what Polaroid glasses did. So I took my Polaroid glasses and just held it in front of the camera of my mobile. Same, almost the same picture, same place, same background, but just I held the glasses in front of it and look at the difference it created. Bear in mind, goggles would have not done this. Okay, what would goggles do? Goggles क्या करेगा, वो ये पूरा का पूरा image को पूरा का पूरा image को कम bright करेगा। कम bright करेगा मतलब कैसे दिखेगा वो, ऐसा दिखेगा, ठीक है। राइट नाउ इट्स स्टिल उतना ब्राइटनेस कम नहीं हुआ है, कैमरा मुझे दिख रहा है कम हुआ है, बट कैमरा में नहीं हुआ है। बट आई मीन दैट डजंट मेक थिंग्स बेटर, जस्ट मेकिंग इट वर्स इन फैक्ट। ये और डिम हो रहा है, पहले से उतना अच्छा सराउंडिंग्स दिख नहीं रहा है, और ये बस और डिम हो रहा है। बट Polaroid glasses will selectively reduce only the reflected light from the water. उसको selectively reduce किया, बाकी सारे region से you can see the color of the sky coming in nicely, you can see more clarity, more detail, you can see clouds in detail, you can even see below the surface of your water as well. So this is one place where I really felt यार ये कुछ useful मैंने सीखा physics के coaching में. In fact, with Polaroid glasses, we were able to see below the surface of the lake, of the lagoon. And as we were kayaking, we were able to see corals, we were able to see turtles, which we absolutely could not see with our eyes. With our eyes, we could only see very just hazily below the water, but with those glasses we could see with a lot of clarity. So this okay, that's just something interesting I thought I'd share with you guys. Right, back to this. Likhna है, लिख लो. Okay, remember next time if you're going to Andaman, Lakshadweep, Maldives, anywhere, or if you're going to the north where there'll be snow, please invest in Polaroid glasses. Not very expensive. Definitely worth it. All right. कोई लिखना है? Should I wait? Yeah, are you done? Say something. Okay. कोई वेट नहीं बोल रहा है. I'm assuming you guys are done. All right. So let's at least try to finish polarization today. Maybe Huygens कल होगा. ये नीचे एक मिनट आ गया. इसको ऊपर never mind, I'll fix that. So basically ब्रूस्टर्स लॉ क्या बोलता है? Yeah, we finish it. Don't worry. We'll finish this easily tomorrow and we will discuss your HCV in the class following that. Okay. Now quickly, Brewster's law says, okay, this guy now, his law is essentially this. He found that there is a special angle of incidence which he named after himself as the Brewster's angle. And he said at this angle of incidence, the reflected ray is completely polarized perpendicular to the plane of the diagram. मतलब ये जो reflected ray है, there exists a particular angle of incidence जिसके लिए reflected ray पूरा का पूरा horizontally polarized है. मतलब इस particular angle of incidence में my reflected ray does not contain E2 at all. It only contains E1. Okay, so you can see how in this diagram at that particular angle of incidence, Brewster's angle represented by beta, the reflected ray has no green component, no component in the diagram, only the perpendicular component. Okay, at this angle, the reflected ray has no component in the plane of the diagram. Moreover, he also found, as he went through all angles, however, there exists no angle of incidence for which refracted ray is completely polarized. Okay, it always contains the component perpendicular to the screen. तो उसने ये देखा कि बट ऐसा कोई भी एंगल ऐसा नहीं होता है जिसमें ट्रांसमिटेड रे पूरा का पूरा पोलराइज्ड है. हाँ बिल्कुल, मतलब ब्रूस्टर्स एंगल पे ये पर्पल डॉट विल बी एज स्मॉल एज पॉसिबल, बट वो कभी जीरो नहीं होगा, वो हमेशा थोड़ा सा रहेगा ही, जिसके कारण ट्रांसमिटेड रे कभी पूरा पोलराइज होता नहीं है. इट कंटेन्स मेजॉरिटी ग्रीन बट लिटिल पर्पल डॉट विल ऑलवेज बी देयर. Moreover, an interesting thing he found was at the Brewster's angle, it was found that the reflected ray and the refracted ray are perpendicular. So that was his law. Okay? At the Brewster's angle, it was found that the reflected ray and the refracted ray are perpendicular. So again, you don't need to know where this comes from. I don't see any textbook normally mention it as well. Seems like it's just something that he has observed. But you need to know that this happens. At this magical angle, the reflected and the refracted ray are perpendicular, जिसके कारण we get the Brewster's angle to have this specific value, tan inverse mu. We can prove that it will have that value given that this is perpendicular. Okay, given that it is perpendicular. कैसे? In fact, beta meaning this implies that these two are perpendicular, and these two being perpendicular implies that beta should be tan inverse mu. So it could be the other way around as well. Like it could be कि he found कि at this special angle tan inverse mu, the reflected ray is completely polarized, and tan inverse mu automatically implies कि these two should be perpendicular. Okay, so let me explain how it implies that. देखो कैसे, how they mean one and the same thing. यहाँ पे अगर angle of incidence beta है और angle of reflection फिर accordingly भी beta होगा, and then when you use the fact जो वो बोल रहा है कि ये दोनों को perpendicular होना चाहिए, if those two have to be perpendicular, then this angle has to be 90 degrees minus beta, because that's beta, this is 90, total is 180, so this guy has to be 90 degrees minus beta. So the angle of refraction is 90 minus beta, but the angle of incidence is beta. Mu is by definition sin I by sin R. Sin I becomes sin beta, but sin R becomes cos 90 minus beta. Sorry, sin R becomes sin 90 minus beta, which becomes cos beta. Sin beta by cos beta is tan beta. So mu is tan beta and beta is tan inverse mu. So this being 90 implies that your angle of incidence has to be tan inverse mu. Your angle of incidence being tan inverse mu implies that reflected ray and refracted ray are perpendicular. Okay. Okay. So this ray happens to be completely polarized. It so happens that it is completely polarized for this angle of incidence. And if this is the angle of incidence, then automatically a logical conclusion is the reflected ray and the refracted ray are perpendicular. इस पे और क्या सवाल बन सकता है apart from a direct formula based question? I can't think of anything beyond a formula based question. Again, ये भी पूरा polarization mains के syllabus में ही है. Just know what Brewster's law is. Just know कि reflected ray is completely polarized, perpendicular to the diagram. Refracted ray never completely polarized. Just know at one special angle, tan inverse mu, that particular scene takes place, the reflected ray is completely polarized. And at tan inverse mu, ये derivation easily समझ में आना चाहिए. At tan inverse mu, the reflected ray and the refracted ray are interestingly perpendicular, which will be true if the angle of incidence is tan inverse mu. You can easily prove that. Okay, got it? That wraps up polarization for us. We'll discuss the remaining homework questions tomorrow, and we'll quickly have a look at the Huygens principle. All right. Huygens principle is just theoretical. You don't have to practice any sums on it. Just show up tomorrow and understand it. In the meanwhile, from Wave Optics, please attempt your HCV homework, and you can refer to the video solutions we discuss in the last lecture this week that I have with you guys. We'll discuss the homework in that, and we clear our doubts in that topic. Fine. Prepare well for your MP. Revise the notes. You've solved enough questions. It's a good time to check if you have forgotten certain things. So just do a quick recap of the notes. See whether you remember your concepts. Take it easy. You can't solve books now. Revise your notes. Solve a few questions before the test. Okay? Solve the good questions. रोटेशनल रिवाइज करना है, 4-5 अच्छे क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर लो कंसेप्चुअल वाले, ठीक है ऐसा. Always keep a bank of nice some 10-12 questions from a book you have solved to revise that particular chapter. ऐसे क्वेश्चंस पिक कर लो जिससे बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस, बहुत सारे कंसेप्ट्स रिवाइज हो जाते हैं. एक पॉइंट के बाद सारे क्वेश्चंस आर एक्चुअली सिमिलर to ones you've already seen. All right, see you, bye bye. Anyone has any? Can you try new questions before the exam? Absolutely, you can try new questions. If I mean, see, if you're well versed with your chapter, like if you're at a place ki I know I have been revising all these months and I know my concepts, I know my theory, I'm familiar with basic question types. If you're in that place, then it's of course a good idea to solve new questions. You could maybe bring in the test solving element and solve new questions with a time limit. So you could, if you're in that place कि तुम्हारा revision in a way हो गया, मैं अब और revise करना है, concepts सारे आते हैं, तो take new questions, put time and solve. If you're like solving from your booklet or DC Pandey or something like that, take like 25 questions, put, if they're easy, put 1 hour to it. A little difficult, थोड़ा और time दे दो, but put a time limit and try to solve it. तो एक test वाला aspect भी cover हो जाएगा, and you're also your most alert. You have almost maximum concentration levels when you give things as a test. So try it that way. That'll be good way of using your time. Okay. Cool. Bye bye.